As you might have noticed, we organized this event by Ghent University. We are the Center for Student Entrepreneurship at the university. But who are we? Well, we're a quite small team. I myself am Gerlinde. I do anything communications and events, but I also like to present a few of my colleagues, starting with Jolien. She does anything with educational support, but she's also the manager of our research program, Science to Business. Then we have our colleague Ellen. She's the coordinator of Age Impact, which is a health program. We also have Steve here. He's our general coordinator of DO. There's Tom, who played you some music before. He's actually our growth entrepreneurship coach. So if you're inspired after this session, make sure to book an appointment with him to go over your ideas. But what do we do exactly? Well, here you see a rough overview of all of the things that we do. I'll start with coaching. Coaching is actually the core of DO. So it's very important to us, and everyone from Ghent University is welcome to come by and have a talk about their idea. For small ideas, starting ideas, but also for growers, people who already manage and are an entrepreneur, but have growth potential and want to discuss that. Tom is an expert in that. He used to be an entrepreneur himself. We also organize events, just like the event tonight, which is an inspirational event, but we also host workshops and hackathons because we really want to give you a taste of entrepreneurship in a practical way. Then we also have our programs. Our programs go a little step further. We ask more commitments. We guide you to get started with your own idea. And I would like to go into two specific programs. The first one is Expedition DO. Tonight is kind of a symbolic launch of the opening of applications of the 2021 edition of Expedition DO, but I'll tell you more about that later. And the second one is our Science to Business program, which is a specific research program. It's a program for PhDs who say, well, I really want to see what else I can do with my research results, what I'm at the end of my PhD, and I want to see if I can do anything else with the results. And then we also have elective courses. We have 5 of them. 2 of them obtain doctoral schools credits, so are interesting for you guys as well. So have a look. We see that not a lot of researchers know this, so have a look at our website. Next up, we also have a yearly call for challenges. So we kind of ask the industry or organizations to submit challenges they come across in the real world, and then teachers can use these in their classes. So it's a lot more fun for students because they can actually work on something that's not theoretical, and they can make an impact on society. For the teachers here tonight, just wanted to let you know that we also offer educational support. So also there, ask us a question later in the evening. For example, we have a Train the Trainer session coming up next month. And then I wanted to give you a look at the Foundry, which is the location where we have our offices, but also where you can come for coaching. It's also a place where you can meet other students or researcher entrepreneurs, where we sometimes have events, where you can book a meeting room. So we really do hope that we can go back to that normal way of doing things soon now. So that was, in a nutshell, all the things I can tell you about DO, but know that you have also other parties at the university that you can contact if you have questions about entrepreneurship. So you can come to us if your idea is not linked to your research. So you can come straight to us to have coaching and to go to events. Is your idea not linked? Is your idea linked to your research? Then it's really important to let you know that you also need to pass by tech transfer. So they can help you with licensing, your business plan, funding, legal advice. It's also very important, and I'm going to stress this because a lot of people tend to forget, and it's really important to know it up front, is that you can do no publications or disclosures of your idea without informing your promoter. You have to discuss your commercialization plans with your promoter as well. And if you want to take that step to commercialize your research, you need to inform tech transfer. So really don't forget to pass by them. If your idea is linked to research, of course, you're also very welcome at DO. We can give you advice and we can give you coaching as well. And a third party that is there for you is the IOF or IDC, depending on your sector. They can give you sector-specific contacts and advice. You can see in the right corner that you can always contact us. I'll drop the links in the chat when I finish. So if you have any questions, you can ask us, but you can also ask us at the end of the event as well. Voila, and that was everything I needed to say. I'm already looking forward to hearing the stories of our research founders in our panel today. And we're really honored to have Tom, Director of BlueHealth Innovation Center, here to be our host tonight. So I think the floor is yours, Tom.
Thank you very much, Gerlinde, and a very good evening to each and every one of you. As Gerlinde said, my name is Tom, and even though my name is Tom, I promise you I will not sing for you because that wouldn't be a good idea. Let's put it that way. So I will be hosting you through the rest of this panel discussion that we're going to have with 4 fantastic speakers that we have lined up for you. I'll introduce them to you in a minute. Just a few practical things. I have prepared quite some questions for our speakers, but if you have something that you would like to ask to any of the speakers, it could be one particular or a more generic question, feel free to use the chat window. The chat is being moderated, so we'll have a look at that and then we can pose your question. So it would be interesting if you have a question for a specific person, is to also include that within your question so that we know who you would like to have an answer from. Afterwards, there's also the possibility to have some networking with some of the speakers. So do stay tuned for that as well. Good. And without any further ado, let me introduce you to our panelists for tonight. And I'll start with the ladies first. That's Kim de Nolf. She's founder at QustomDot. Then we have Tanika Kenens. She's a researcher and also founder of AlterEdu. And then Jan Rossey is a founder and CEO of Lopos. And he participated in Expedition DO 2 years ago. So we'll hear more about that. And then we have Jonathan Berte, who's the founder and CEO of Robovision. Who is a former student at the University of Ghent, and a bit what the odd one out. And I'll ask Jonathan to give a bit more elaboration on that because he's not a PhD, and that was a bit strange already in the preparations. But anyway, he has some very solid background as well. So. If I could ask, maybe let's start with Kim. If you could briefly introduce yourself, who you are, what your background is, and what your company QustomDot is actually doing.
Of course, Tom. Hi, everyone. My name is Kim. I am a chemist. So in 2007, I started studying chemistry here at the Ghent University. After my studies, I went to do a PhD in physical chemistry in the group of Hens. In that group, we research mainly the physics and chemistry of nanostructures. So we focus on semiconductor nanoparticles, and those can be used to make displays and lighting better. So in that research group, some patents were produced. So that actually started. Then we had the idea of creating a startup from that IP. And so we went to apply for an IOF grant, so a grant at the Industrial Research Fund, to see if this research could be valorized and could be brought into a spin-off. And somewhat 3 to 4 years later, here we are. QustomDot has been launched in 2020. So actually tomorrow is our first birthday. And our company specifically makes quantum dots for micro-LED applications.
All right, thank you, and congratulations on the first anniversary tomorrow.
Thank you.
So this was a classic, if I could put it gently, a classic approach from research to company. I would like to give the floor to Tanika, because you did the inverse, actually. You started as an entrepreneur and then became a researcher. How did that come about?
Yes, thank you, Tom. So indeed, I started a language company in 2013, which is still running, Hello Languages. And while I was there, I already had a thing for research before starting, but economic situations pushed me to go and do my thing. And while I was running that language school, I actually came upon the same research question as I had been walking around with since forever, which was, how come some people learn faster than others? Or how come this thing is working for some people and it's not working for other people? So since I thought this question is going to haunt my nightmares for the rest of my life if I don't do anything about it, I decided to go back to research with the help of Ellen, one of the people from Ghent, actually. And I ended up in cognitive sciences, basically. So what we do with AlterEdu is we developed a model that maps the way people process information and how they use it on the work floor, so that we can make predictions on lifelong learning, up and reskilling, but also productive working individually or in team, so that we can help to let people evolve just as quickly as the job market is changing.
All right, thank you for that introduction. Now we'll get back to a couple of the things you mentioned. Next up is Jonathan Berte. He's the CEO and founder of Robovision. Jonathan, could you give a bit of your background and also your academic trajectory, which is not bad, let's put it very mildly. So how did you come about to create Robovision, and how did it start at the University of Ghent for you?
Well, I was difficult in puberty. I was really the one that you didn't want to have in your classroom. But then at some moment I got a book from my dad. It was called Gödel, Escher, Bach, and I was really inspired by it. And I really discovered mathematics quite late, like in 5th of the secondary school. And I decided that I really wanted to, I called it myself, do applied philosophy. So use physics, applied physics and engineering to really understand reality and consciousness much better. So at that point, I took just the leaflet of the academic programs of the University of Ghent, and I just saw that civil engineering option applied physics had the most free credits. So I decided to do that because what I wanted to study was not yet there. It was artificial intelligence and image processing. And I knew in the University of Zurich, the ETH actually, was really that they were doing a lot of nice stuff, the Institute of Neuroinformatics. And that's when I really decided to have a business. I knew that image processing at some point would break off or take off. And I started really as a consultant, just like after my studies. I discovered that this world was really taking off. And but in the beginning, I wrote these algorithms myself, these image processing algorithms, and it was fairly difficult because it was always adapting to a new breed of plants. It was in agriculture. And then I met Benjamin. I knew Benjamin Schrouw since I was a child, but he was the leader of the group called Reservoir Computing. And he called me one day and said, like, I have a really good postdoc for you. And he doesn't know what exactly he wanted to do. And at that moment, I was still a consultant, and I decided that he would become my CTO. It was Tim Wageman. Tim was part of a stellar generation. Some of you know Sander Dieleman, the DeepMind heroes of WaveNet and so on. But yeah, he decided to start working for me and to convert all of these man-made algorithms into deep learning algorithms. And that's when the platform Robovision AI was formed. And we're now, I think, 104 people, a lot of PhDs, a lot of postdocs. We are really like a productizing factory with an AI exchange that we're bringing to the market in 4 different domains: healthcare, manufacturing, smart cities, and horticulture, agriculture. So yeah, that's I'm really inspired to be here tonight, because I believe that I mean, we lack a bit of energy at the University of Ghent in comparison with universities like TU Delft and Eindhoven and so on, where there is a much more lively ecosystem for company creation. And yeah, as they say in Dutch, I want to throw the stick in the hoenderhok.
I'm not even going to try to translate that. Really sorry for the non-native Dutch-speaking people, but the stock in the hoenderhok, that's what it is. Okay, thank you for that. We'll get back to a couple of points you mentioned on hiring PhDs and also the stock in the hoenderhok. We'll get back to that. Now, the last one is Jan Rossey. He's the founder and CEO of Lopos. Jan, could you give your trajectory at the university and how you came about creating Lopos?
Sure. Thanks, Tom. So I started studying, I started actually after my studies of civil engineering, industrial engineering, at the research group IDLab, which is a research group that is affiliated both with the Ghent University and also IMEC. And I worked for 10 years on different technologies, from Internet of Things, wireless communication networks, etc., to indoor positioning. So one of my main focuses was positioning, which is like GPS systems, but that work also indoors and very accurately. So that was always one of my main interests. And after 10 years of working on that, we realized that we had some really nice technology, and that was probably going to remain on the shelf, that we were just going to put in the closet and not do anything with it. So we decided then, okay, let's do something with this. Let's see what's out there. And then my promoter came to me saying, okay, Jan, are you interested in joining AlterEdu and seeing, okay, can we do something with this technology? So I was a bit hesitant at first, because I was like, entrepreneurship, that's nothing for me. I want to work 9 to 5. And the life after work is more important for me. And today I'm still here. And then Tom and the other coaches at the Expedition 2 coached me a lot in going to found a company based on our technology. And today we are almost 10 people, and we have a lot of customers, over 100 customers, sold a lot of devices in using our ultra-wideband technology. So today we are focusing on social distancing wearables, devices that are measuring distance between employees of companies and warning them. But of course, we as well hope that COVID is going to go away soon. So that's why we are aiming our arrows to other domains, and that is worker safety solutions. So we're still going to focus industry-related use cases where we can use the same technology that we developed at Ghent University.
All right. Thank you, Jan, for that introduction, and thank you all for those introductions. Jan, I'm going to stay with you for a first follow-up question. Is you said I went from research 9 to 5 to entrepreneurship. What made you make that leap, and how has that journey been for you? The good, the bad, the ugly?
Okay. So I all my life, I was always someone that was really, if you put a challenge in front of me, then I really want to tackle the challenge. So in all domains of my life. And entrepreneurship, starting a company from scratch, was a really big challenge that I really wanted to tackle. And I said, okay, why not? And also the mindset of entrepreneurship is something that I really learned at Expedition 2. Because in the beginning, I had no idea what all the company terms and startup things meant. But there, I really learned what it means, and it really fascinated me. So indeed, the 9-to-5 thing, a safe job, was appealing to me at that time. But leaving that and we said we're going to leave the golden cage of a nice position at the university to go into a very uncertain, risky job. Well, it appealed really a lot to me, so we made the leap, and today I'm still very happy that I did that. Yes.
All right, Jonathan, maybe getting to you. You're probably the most seasoned entrepreneur in this company. How would you define entrepreneurship? What makes you an entrepreneur?
Oh, it's fairly obvious. It's risk taking. It's going out of comfort zone. It's very comparable with doing sports and trying to run a marathon if you're still on the 10K level. It's being different. It's all about solving problems that are not yet solved, trying to improve society, trying to gather the best and brightest around you, and making most out of it. It's really like a game. It's really comparable to these sessions of Kolonisten of Catan or Hotel when you were 12, 13 years old and you felt this vibe like, I'm going to win this game. That's entrepreneurship. It's about putting a flag on the moon.
And is there a certain skill set that you need as an entrepreneur? Can anybody be an entrepreneur?
No, not anybody can be an entrepreneur. You really need to be resilient. You need grit, long-term passion and endurance. I mean, some people really have it in them, and others I can advise to really work for the state and not be an entrepreneur. I mean, it's not for everyone.
Okay, that's clear. Tanika, you were an entrepreneur and then became a researcher. You're still an entrepreneur, but you also became a researcher again. Was there something in your entrepreneurship that was holding you back from becoming a researcher, or was it a drive towards that research? How was that personal journey for you?
I think it was a bit of both, because seeing that the first company that I started actually needed the research that I was going to conduct, it was more of a drive. Especially the further I went into the research topic, the more evident it became that lifelong learning was going to become something like a very hot topic and something that was going to be even more important towards the future. So more of a drive. On the other hand, I have been combining research and entrepreneurship at the same time, and I do feel like I need to switch my mindset every time that I'm switching between tasks. So it's very difficult if I have meetings or sales conversations or those kind of things, or development in AI for the startup. If I have to do that in the morning and then in the afternoon, I need to go back to research, it is very hard to get my mind back to what is necessary for research to be focused on all the details, all the evidence-basedness and everything that's not so relevant to entrepreneurship. I mean, need to take the speed out and slow down and go back to the baseline, right? So it does have a very specific, it's a drive, but it's at the same time also quite restricting towards what needs to be done in research, also time-wise, obviously.
And is that for you the biggest difference, that the speed and the perception of time between an entrepreneur and a researcher?
No, not the biggest one. I mean, if I were to compare it the other way around, so if I take the model that we've constructed for research, so of course you're always product anchored, because you're looking for the best way to develop your product. You want it to work perfectly. You want it to be evidence-based. You want it to be inclusive, everything. But then from the moment you hit the market, basically the market, before it had its knack or its tendency towards more evidence-based models, the only thing that really mattered was the ease in use, for example, so customer efficiency. One of the things that companies also keep saying is, if we're going to work on lifelong learning, we want people to have self-responsibility, which means that the program or the model should be so easy that anyone could be able to work with it. And budgetary-wise, time-wise, there are not that many people that can that can dedicate themselves fully to the thing that you developed. So the most difficult part is when you take your research and you go to the market with that research, is that you need to respect the things that have been priority on the job market since forever, all the while maintaining your evidence-based nature. And I think the combination of those two is very hard to keep, because you don't want to take away part from your evidence to have this experience, nor do you want to keep your business from growing because you're holding onto it too tightly. So I think that is, for me, the most important part.
All right. Thank you. Kim, getting to you, because you took the whole trajectory from researcher to entrepreneur. What is your experience? You're now 1 year officially entrepreneur. What has it been for you? What is your definition of an entrepreneur?
Well, first of all, it's very difficult after such a nice definition of Jonathan. But I have to say, for me, it's mainly like looking for a business model that will suit your research, because it's actually for me. So we started with this IOF grant. It was granted based on what we wrote together with our IOF business developer. That was Danae at the time. So we kind of already made a small business case there, but then still you have to find customers and find how you will put this product in the market and what is needed, what qualities in that product are needed to really reach the market. So for me, it's really looking for a scalable business model. And that's actually also what you need to do as an entrepreneur in a startup company. There's this really nice definition of a startup company in the Startup Owner's Manual. It's a book. And there they say that a startup company is not a small company. No, so it's not a small version of a big company. It's actually a company that is in search of the business model that they can use. So a product market fit, a sales model that gives continuous revenues. And then once you find that business model and you are ready to execute it, you actually become a company.
Okay. And there's a question that came in from Dimitrios. Specifically, which skills developed during your PhD help you to become a successful entrepreneur? What did you take with you from that research background to becoming an entrepreneur?
I think the basic way of doing experiments actually helps a lot. So the fact that you can, you go into an experiment, you make a hypothesis, you test that, then you get some conclusions, and then you can iterate your process. It's a bit the same as what you can apply to finding a business model. You make a hypothesis about your business model, then you go to customers, you test this out, you try to make the perfect product or semi-perfect product, and then you go into the field, get some feedback, and then you iterate that. So that's maybe the first thing. And then the second thing for me, at least, is soft skills. There's a lot of courses that you can take as a PhD. For example, the negotiations classes or the other kind of classes that you can take, they are really, like leadership and stuff like that, they are really useful to become an entrepreneur.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, you mentioned at the beginning you hire quite a lot of PhD and postdocs, and you're based in the research park in Zwijnaarden. What is it specifically that you're looking for in these profiles?
It's their analytical profile, the fact that if you give them a really far-fetched task, they're not scared of mathematics and building a model, to have a long-term goal of solving a difficult problem and taking ownership of that, doing the research themselves, taking care of contacting professors at the university and getting some holes in this track filled. So it's a true difference to have a PhDer or somebody that has done research and a normal IT profile. It's really a big difference.
And is there something that you say when I hire a researcher, this is what in business terms you would call a point of feedback? Is there working areas in which you say that is kind of a skill set that they have that we do not rather have in a company?
Well, it's the openness to theory and experiment and all that comes with it, and also the guidance they can give to more junior profiles in teaching them this more difficult, like in deep learning you have a lot of this really difficult stuff like reinforcement learning, and then to get this stable, to get GAN network stable, I mean, it's only actually our PhDers that can really do that. We see that. We see the added value, and yeah, we also cherish that. We try to give back by giving courses at university, by giving practicals in the last year of the civil engineering courses. And we try to also get them into entrepreneurs because some of these people, they are really ambitious and then they want to found a business. So we're trying to get such an incubator style program inside our ecosystem so we can coach them into becoming entrepreneurs and to validate their idea more and deeper. So I'm really happy to be in the Technologiepark Zwijnaarden, very close to many of such profiles.
Okay, thank you. Jan, I'm coming to you. You said at the beginning that initially you had a solution, but not a problem. Is that maybe something that is different in research than in business? And are there other things that you see as a researcher that you took with you to becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big difference between research and entrepreneurship. So in research, the end goal does not always has to be very clear. You can do some research on a specific technology, and then you try to see all aspects of that technology or see what you can do with it, and then try to analyze it in all ways possible without being certain what the end goal will be. The end goal is not the goal itself. It's just by getting there and by researching it, maybe something will become clear. I think in entrepreneurship, you do not always have that luxury. You need to be very focused from the beginning and work from a problem, from a use case to the solution. While in research, you sometimes just are working on a solution without really knowing exactly what problem you are solving with this. And this was really one of the biggest issues for Lopos in the beginning, and sometimes still is. We had nice technology, but we didn't know what to focus it on. So that was a big part of our expedition, and also afterwards, that we really tried to find the right use case, the right markets to go to. So yeah, that's definitely a big difference for me between research and entrepreneurship.
And if you were to start over now and immediately as an entrepreneur, were there certain things that you would do differently?
There's always things that you will do differently, and I think, but those, in my opinion, are all details. I think there's a lot of things that we did, me, but also my founders, that were also researchers that were very good. So we had some very nice opportunities when we started. We had some immediate paying customers. We didn't need funding, and then COVID happened for us, which is that's a bit strange to say, but for us it was also a big opportunity. So if I look back to our journey over the last 2 years, I think there's not a lot of crucial things that I would do really differently. No. Maybe what I would do differently is maybe start earlier. Maybe before, the research thing. If we would have done the same expedition or realized 2 years earlier that we could do this, then I think it would also have worked. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's a question that came in from Kim, and this is probably a good question to segue into really starting your company. The question was actually that came in from Jasper. In terms of your spin-off, what is the role of a promoter, and how long do you take your promoter with you in the spin-off? At what point do you become fully independent, or is it still tightly linked? How did you go about creating the company at a certain moment?
Yeah. So I think it's probably very personal. It depends on the promoter, it depends on the context of the research group, etc. For us, it was really the promoter that came with the idea to start a company, and he searched within his research group to the right people to go forward with this. And very quickly, he gave me full responsibility to go forward with this, with the startup and the spin-off. But still our promoter from back in the day is still very much involved in Lopos. He's one of the founders, he's one of the shareholders, and he still has an active role within Lopos. I think that this is an option, but I think other options are very valid as well, where the promoter is not really involved at all. So it really depends on the context of the research group and the promoter.
Yeah. And Kim, how was that for you?
So we actually started off with the idea of launching a spin-off, and so it was me and the current team actually that we have. And I pitched it to my professor when we were in the car coming back from a conference, and it was a very long drive, and I didn't have anything to say anymore. You know, you talk about the weather, you talk about all these kind of stuff. And then when I said it to him, he was like, yeah, okay, maybe it's a bit early for that. And then a few months later, he came back to me to say like, yeah, okay, I've given it some thought and maybe we should go for this IOF project. And of course, he was involved in writing that IOF project, and he was always there to give us advice, but really to decide about which markets we were going in or all these kind of things. He let that part, let us be free in that part, let's say. But even now, he's still very, very closely involved. He's a director, so he's a member of the board, representing the University of Ghent, and gives very, very, very useful feedback to us. Then we also have a subsidy grant running together. So him as or at the research group as a research institute, and then us as a company. So we still have that connection because I mean, Zahir is one of the smartest people I know, and I think it's very useful to keep that connection.
Okay, Tanika, you're still in your research. Did you talk up front about how the company that you still have would use that research? Or is
Yes,
it officially already a spin-off, or how should I position what exactly AlterEdu is doing?
Well, actually, I went through quite the strange trajectory. So first, when I spoke to my now co-supervisor, Martin Valke, it was not possible for me to obtain a title because in Belgium, it is impossible to be self-employed first and to then become a PhD. So in that case, I was just doing research for research because I enjoyed doing it and he enjoyed doing it and he believed in the cause. After a while, I met a professor from the University of Tilburg in the Netherlands, where it is possible to be self-employed and to obtain a title at the same time. So I transferred, and at that point, Ghent became the co-university, not the first university, meaning that all of my tech transfer talks were also transferred to the University of Tilburg. Since it was quite a relative new project, so humanities and digital sciences don't usually tend to have spin-offs. So they basically just accepted the fact that since it was a self-funded PhD, that I got to keep all the rights. So in my case, there is no actual spin-off as in the pure definition. On the other hand, my co-supervisor, so Martin Valke from the University of Ghent, would always be in the board of directors, will always be involved in any kind of project that we go for. And from the moment that I finish writing, which is the stage I'm in now, he will probably also introduce me in some new projects as well.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, I want to jump to your remark you made at the beginning about why Ghent is less active than, for instance, TU Delft or TU Eindhoven. Why do you think that is, that there are less spin-offs, or the perception of less spin-offs from this ecosystem, and maybe by extension the Flemish university ecosystem?
Oh, it's a really difficult question. I've been thinking a lot about that, because the University of Ghent is particularly a huge university in terms of yearly output. But if you look at the successful scale-ups, there are almost none, apart from biotechnology, of course. But I regard this also as a responsibility of the VIB. I don't know. I think it's a bit the culture. I mean, if you look at Leuven and Antwerp, I'm also from Antwerp. We're a bit more arrogant, a bit more. It's also, if you go out in Ghent as a student and you are there in the Dambert, of course now it's not possible, but that's the first thing they say of you. Oh, you're from Antwerp, you're arrogant, and it's absolutely true. But it's also have a reflection on business. I think that there is more in other university centers. There is more daring. If I look at the questions being posed here also about entrepreneurship, they're very how could I say, brav. How do you say that in English?
Polite.
Polite.
Yeah.
Until when do I take my promoter with me at business? I'm telling, like, if you're a real businessman, fuck your promoter. You're the business woman, or I mean, and that's really the attitude of a winner, is like, you go for it, and nobody can stand in your way, not even tech transfer. Even if the idea is from the university, you just arrange it, you make it your thing. You understand? So it's an attitude of winning and going all the way.
Okay. Jan, what do you think about that statement? Do you have that grit, that arrogance to just go for it?
Way too little in comparison to Jonathan, probably. But still, I fully follow him. Just getting things done, just saying, okay, this is the goal that I have, and do everything that you can just to get that goal. It's very easy, especially in the journey towards a startup and to any company, to see a lot of problems and say, okay, these problems are too much and let's stop it. I think being a founder, CEO, or an entrepreneur is just every day solving problems and finding a way to get over them. I think that's one of the main tasks that I have today, is just solving a different problem every day, and just getting it done.
Yeah, I must add something to that, Tom and Jan. It's that, I mean, the real good business people at Robovision, I'm talking to extremely talented people of 29 that are doing whale deals, as we call them, deals of 3 million euros in licenses, so pure gold for the company valuation. They're really afraid of the PhDers, because PhDers are, I mean, we call them the PhDers in the company. They're the rabbit hole people. You ask something to them, even at the coffee machine, and you have to start running away, because they go way too deep in the rabbit hole. Yeah, but you cannot do this because you have to take this into account, and blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, I don't want to offend people, but it's really important, if you're an entrepreneur and you have a PhD analytical background, you need to find the right people around you, people that are generalists, that are maybe not so smart as you, just that can just do stuff and get things done. And it's really important to have this awareness. I mean, I was schooled in a family where intellectual capacities were very much highlighted, in the sense that, it's not just enough to be smart. You need to be handy also, you understand?
Yeah. And there's a question that came in that links to that from Dimitrios, is maybe combined to that grit and that drive. His question is, how do you protect yourself from being copied at the very beginning against competitors, big brands that want to copy your work, slightly change it? Maybe linked to that, a follow-up question from my side is, do you need to worry about being copied?
I think
to anyone,
if you have to start worrying about being copied at minute one, it's not a good business idea. I mean, in the first place, it needs to be something which is very innovative, but also quite complicated to construct. So you have a natural barrier between competitors. If you have a brilliant idea, but somebody else can do it in a week or with some 200k euros, just copy it. It's just not. I mean, we live in an extremely competitive world. So the idea must be really good to pay the Belgian salaries. People are not aware as a would-be entrepreneur. But if somebody gets 2,000 euros or 3,000 euro net, you easily pay 7,000 in costs altogether. So I mean, much more than in Holland even. So you need to have this conviction and really the right idea. Otherwise, it makes no sense in a Belgium ecosystem to have all these expensive costs.
I think, if I may add to that, I think that's a big advantage of being a spin-off of Ghent University or whatever university, is that typically you become a spin-off because you have developed some technology and which is unique and which is not easily copyable. So also at Lopos, we were not very concerned on being copied. A lot of work got into the IP and to make the spin-off. So it is not something we worry about a lot. It is something that is on our agenda, but not every day, definitely not.
Yeah. Maybe a question to Kim that also came in from Jolien. Go ahead, Tanika, sorry.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add to that as well. So everything that the two gentlemen said is completely true. But apart from that, when speaking to investors, trying to get them to sign an NDA because you're afraid of being copied isn't really well taken in general. So, I mean, it's an inherent deterrent of getting funding, as I've noticed in the early years with my first company. So yeah, I mean, if you think that it's so easily copied, then maybe it's also worth thinking, even after you've launched it, people could still copy it. I mean, the Chinese do it all the time. They look at something, they see it, they copy it, and done with it. So if there is no inherent element to it that you can keep hidden or something that's too complex to copy just instantly before you have enough followers or enough users for it to be copied, then it doesn't really matter if it's before or after launching. So that's also something to consider.
All right, thank you for adding that remark. Jumping to Kim, a question from Jolien, specifically on your entrepreneurship journey. How did your colleagues react? Was it more like, what are you doing? Or was it more like in awe, she's taking a risk to become an entrepreneur?
I think everybody was very excited. And I mean, I didn't do this by myself from our research group. So there's 3 of the founders, 3 out of 4 of the founders are actually from the same research group. So everybody was like super excited, and some were really eager to join us as well. So some of our employees are actually ex-colleagues of the research group. So yeah, everybody was really interested, let's say.
All right, good, thank you. Before we jump to programmatic support, because we are here in perspective of Expedition Do, of course, there's a question that came in from Alessandra, very specific question. Did any one of you worked with the defense and security sector? And if so, could you share some expertise or some stories? If you're allowed to, of course, because defense and security.
At Lopos, we do not really have any experience with that kind of thing. Well, we do have experience with the pharmaceutical sector. And that's an experience that we had last couple of months. If you want to do a deal with a big pharmaceutical company, it's very complex. The requirements that they have for other companies, for suppliers, is extreme. We had to jump through a lot of hoops and provide them with a lot of documents and risk assessments, etc., to do that. And for us, it was really a lot of work, but we are really happy that we succeeded and that we have that pharmaceutical company as a customer now, because once you are in there, once you have all those documents, it's easy to go for the next customer in that area.
Okay.
It's a bit you have to think about stuff if you do business with defense. First of all, your team. Every technological company, AI company most of all, needs to have an ethical statement, ethical mission. And in most of these ethical missions, it's written that if it's lethal technology, yeah, we won't do it. And it's the same for us. We've been asked a lot of times, or quite some times, to have defense AI systems, but it's yeah, I mean, there are a lot of opportunities. I think there are better ones to focus on than defense.
Okay, thank you for adding that. I want to jump to the topic of accelerators, incubators, all the programmatic support that is out there. So Jan, you followed Expedition Do. Kim, you followed Vocabrio and started at KBC. What is your experience? And anyone can react to this with these programs. Maybe Jan, I want to start with you. Expedition Do. This is the moment where you promote that it's fantastic. Like we rehearsed, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I didn't even have to rehearse it, to tell the truth. So to me, Expedition Do is really what accelerated me from a researcher to an entrepreneur. So for me, it was very valuable. As I said, I really, before joining Expedition Do, I was not planning to start a company. I was not planning to take this journey. But really there, I was coached and got really the vibe to do something entrepreneurial. They challenged us a lot, really a lot. So as a researcher, you are focusing on the wrong things. Sometimes you are focusing on the technology. Me and the other founders were also way too modest, thinking about, okay, what can we do with this technology? And being a bit more extrovert and saying, okay, we can do this and we can grab this market. That's something that the Expedition Do really helped us with. So, and also an important factor is we knew while doing research that we needed to do something with this IP, but really doing it while you are having a full-time job as a researcher is not that easy, because you need to spend a lot of time in that and a lot of effort. And having Expedition Do, which really gives you workshops and deadlines and things to do, and you really have to follow them. It can really kickstart the effort that you put into it, and that really meant a lot for us.
Yeah, so for me, I don't have a formal training in entrepreneurship, so all the accelerators really helped a lot, just to make sure that you focus on the right things, or that you get to know certain aspects of the business or entrepreneurship. It's really important. And what I really felt is that as you grow as an entrepreneur, different accelerators and different courses and different things can be useful for you. And all of a sudden you have a feeling like, okay, this is not really that useful for me anymore. And then you go to the next part of coaching or mentoring or whatever. And you really grow as an entrepreneur and grow together with all the programs that you follow. So I would recommend doing something like this. I think when we started, Expedition Do was not really there yet, although we went to some workshops at the Foundry, which were at that time very useful. So I would definitely recommend to go into such things. We also went to a 2-week accelerator program in Berlin once. And there we met our first real customers. So it can really kickstart your business.
All right. Anybody who would like to add something to that?
Yeah, sure. So I started at KBC. I'm still planning on maybe going to do the Do expedition, so you might see me again there. So one of the things that was very useful to me was everything surrounding co-founder agreements. I feel like if I would have gone earlier, I would have had less issues with my first co-founders. So, I mean, most people have good intentions, but it's good to have these co-founder agreements, even with people you already know. I mean, I totally underestimated the things you need to take into account, like what if someone gets into an accident, or in my case, what if someone gets lethally ill? What do you do? These kind of things are very, very interesting to learn. I do feel like a lot of accelerators are giving a lot of coaching and a lot of presentations. I think one of the things that I'm missing a little bit out there is more workshops from people who've been through the stages that you're being confronted with. So the ones that actually put you to work. So not the ones where they just tell you about what they've been through, but where they actually tell you like, and now we are going to work on this together. So that's one of the things that I've been missing at the places I've been to. So that's in general, but I believe that Do will definitely do something about that, right?
That's a nice slogan indeed, yeah. Just before we wrap up, just one last question that also came in from Hugo. Are there projects where you need at a certain moment make the harsh decision, this is not worth it, we're going to pull the plug? It could be as an entrepreneur or as a researcher. Jonathan, maybe first starting with you. I can imagine that at Robovision, sometimes there's people coming to you with great ideas. At a certain moment, you pull the plug, or maybe
yes, that's absolutely true. But in the beginning, way too late, of course. It's a matter of intuition and business experience and buffers that you have. In Corona times, we will pull the plug just more rapidly. But basically, everything in business is related to potential to scale. And if you need to pull the plug to something, it means that you're way too dependent on subsidies, local contracts, too few customers, and you do not have the ability to scale. So scaling is everything in business, especially in a Belgian ecosystem. I cannot emphasize this enough. Every single ID shall be scrutinized on the scaling potential. We have the most expensive ecosystem to hire people in the world. So please, people, scaling is the way to circumvent that.
Okay, thank you for that. And from a research point of view, maybe to Yen, Tanika, Kim, at any moment, did you already come across something where you say, we shouldn't have done X amount of years of research on this?
In my case, not really. As before, maybe we could have started 2 years earlier, but I think the experience of doing research was a very nice experience, and we learned a lot of it. So starting a business immediately, would have not allowed us to start a business because we didn't have the research, we didn't have the background to start a business with. So I think both are crucial aspects to do.
Right.
I think business-wise, and go ahead, Tanika. Okay, I think business-wise and research-wise, it's very, very different because business-wise, if you research or if the thing that you're doing is a nice to have, like a very nice feature, but nobody really, really wants it, then it's not worth investing time and money in it because it will not generate any business, any revenues, any profits. But fundamental research needs to be there. I mean, if you would not figure out, okay, this kind of leads to a dead end, then you would not maybe switch to something else. So I really think it's important to still do fundamental research that does not have a specific goal, maybe. But that's why it's funded, because I mean, otherwise we would never have had a rocket into space or something like that. So it's really important to keep on doing fundamental research as well.
Okay, thank you. Tanika, you wanted to add something to that as well?
Yeah, from a perspective of the person who's funding her own research, I agree that it's that normally, well, in my case, I wouldn't have started the research if I didn't know that it was going to have an output. So that's one thing. But I noticed Yen saying that, you know, he would have liked to start earlier with the company and the development. I have to say that actually I've been regretting starting too soon because you make a lot of promises to the market of, you know, when you're going to graduate, when the technology is going to be ready. And then, you know, as I've heard from most PhDs, it doesn't really go according to plan. And then you have all these other parties that are already involved in your business and waiting for it to launch. So in my case, I think starting before you finish is a good thing. But starting completely from the start of your research when you're not even sure when it's going to end is very risky. I did it somewhere in between. I think I would have preferred to start about 4 or 5 months later would have been ideal. So, I mean, your timing is quite crucial in this.
I just want to segue into the closing thoughts. We've covered lots of grounds. There's still many questions that came in the chat. We weren't able to cover all of them. But if each and every one of you, from your own perspective, could give sort of a closing advice to the researchers listening in, what would that advice be? And I'm going to start with Kim, with you.
It's actually a difficult question. I don't know. Think well and dare to do something. I mean, it's the slogan of the university. So I think that's maybe the most important part. Dare to do and learn every day.
Okay, but that's nice. You don't need to be too shy. Tanika?
You caught me off guard there. So one of the things that I've noticed from a lot of entrepreneurs that not a lot of people talk about how hard it can be. So if you decide to go into entrepreneurship, realize that when you're suffering and you think like, what the hell am I doing? Why did I start this? That you're not the first to think this. This doesn't mean that it should be an end to your project. It's just a tough notch to get by. But you know, if at the end of the day, when you're having such a bad day and you're thinking like, why am I doing this? And you remember why you're doing it and the passion that was behind it, or the goal that you had in mind for world improvement or whatever you're searching for. If you keep that in mind, then usually you find back the willpower to keep going. So it doesn't have to be perfect all the time. Do realize that a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to convey a positive message, which is important. But that doesn't mean that if it's not 100% positive for you, that you're doing something wrong.
That's a great insight. Jen, your closing thoughts?
Yeah, so let me make some more advertisements for accelerators like Expedition Do. So I think Jonathan said in the call before, being a researcher is not the best background to become a CEO, and I fully agree with that. But what I also think is that it is definitely possible to do that, but you need to have a lot of coaching. You need to have a good support team behind you that you can fall back to ask all kinds of questions to. And I think for me that helped with Expedition Do, that also helped with iMakeIStart, and both of these accelerators also helped me in finding the right people around me that have more business experience, etc., that are not too technical, and surrounding yourself with the right people. I think that's really crucial. Tackling it alone is very lonely. And it's very difficult to do. So having a team with like-minded people from different backgrounds is crucial in my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Jan, for that. And Jonathan, to you as a seasoned entrepreneur, what would your advice be to these researchers?
First of all, to think really out of the box, because only 1 in 10 of these tech startups, they really survive long term. So you really need to be extremely original, and you need to be aware of your own bad aspects of yourself. So you need a lot of coaching in the sense that you need the right advisors, and you need to be acquainted with the concept to go all the way and out of comfort zone. So go on marathons, 1 marathon every 2 months or something, to really have this psychological resilience to go all the way. Because when Corona strikes and you're in debt, you have loans with the bank, I mean, you will have sleeping problems and so on. I mean, if you're in particular situations, and many of us are. So you need to be very healthy psychologically to cope with that. So be prepared for rock bottom, and it's only when you touch rock bottom that it will go better.
That is indeed some harsh but very interesting feedback indeed. Thank you all. Like I said, there's probably enough content to continue for another hour or so, but at this moment, I think we're going to pass over to Gerlinde again. I would like to sincerely thank our panelists, and this is virtually, but we will give you a big round of applause. Kim, Jonathan, Tanika, and Jen, thank you very much. And Gerlinde, over to you.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much, Tom, for guiding us through the evening. Thank you so much to the panel, our research founders, for being here. I mean, I can imagine there's other things you could do on a Tuesday evening, but I think it's good for all of the researchers who are here tonight to hear your stories. The next part of the evening is I will give a short introduction about Expedition Do, and then there will be a chance to ask questions, and we'll work with some breakout rooms, but I'll explain that later. So first of all, Expedition Do, the term has already passed a few times. If you're thinking about your research or another idea and you think, I'm still a little doubtful, should I do something? Yes, you should. Our program is starting in March, and so tonight the applications are opening, and we'll just play a little video that will explain what Expedition Do really is. Yes, so there we go. The video explains it a lot faster than I ever could. So there we go. I will, however, share a few other insights on the program, which is, it runs for 7 months. So it does really ask for some commitment. We go from idea to business. So you can have a starting idea. You could already have a company and want to better it and make it more scalable. So both of these things are possible. And it's a track, and it's based on really learning something, being very practical about it. It's very different from all of the other university classes that you will get. But it's also important to emphasize that you can win really nice prizes. And we would like to specifically thank Upgots, which is our sponsor, and Tech Transfer and VOCA for offering some of these prizes. The 3 teams that win the expedition receive prizes worth 2,000 euros. And 1 team that is working on research topic from these 3 winners gets an additional 2,000 euros from Tech Transfer to get started, which I think is a really nice start to go in the real world and start your company. There's also 1 audience prize that is being offered by VOCA, and that's a Brio track, which is also really helpful and expands your network. So I guess that's Expedition Do in a nutshell.